want to touch a little bit on about grief. Um, Currently, how I view grief now, I believe I do have a updated, more mature definition of what that is and what that looks like, rather than what I thought about it, say 4 or 5 months ago. Anybody that knows me knows that my dad recently passed or transitioned about 3 months ago. And, so currently I would say I'm experiencing the grief process. And I want to go over 1 Thessalonians 4, starting with 13. And now, dear brothers and sisters, we want you to know what will happen to believers who have died, so you would not grieve like people who have no hope. For since we believe that Jesus died and was raised to life again, we also believe that when Jesus returns, God will bring back with him the believers who have died. In 13, I know I've heard sermons. It was even articulated to me, or even commentated about, that as Christian people, as believers, we have no business grieving. Um, you know, Never really questioned it, you know, but also I never had anybody like a parent, like my dad, somebody that close to you pass. So now this is, I would say, the first time me really having to walk this verse out and really seeing for myself what that really means. And even when I'm looking at it now, I don't see that. I don't see it saying that me being a believer, me being a Christian, that I shouldn't grieve. It says that we shouldn't grieve like people who have no hope. Um, and that's way different than saying that we shouldn't grieve at all. Grieving is a process. Grieving is okay. Grieving is natural. It only becomes a danger or hurtful to you when you do it and you just don't know Jesus. You don't know all that he has done for you. You don't know that this earth is not our home. It's okay to grieve, but we should grieve knowing that hopefully the person that has passed and that has transitioned, made a personal decision to experience Jesus, or to know Jesus, or to make that quality decision to become a believer. And in knowing that, we shouldn't grieve like those that have no hope. Even knowing who my dad is and was in this realm, a minister, a reverend, a mentor, Jesus lover. He constantly let people know where he stood as far as, being a believer, being a Christian man, being a man of God. And me knowing all that and all the stuff that he put in me, I shouldn't grieve like I don't know that. I shouldn't grieve like I don't know what he stood for or who he was. And I grieve now at times when I have moments, or when, I may be, outside cutting my grass and just remember him sitting on the porch and us just having talks and stuff like that. It's okay to grieve. It's okay to cry and have those moments of sorrow, but I shouldn't do it with me not knowing who he is with, or what he stood for all 75 plus years, he was here down on earth. And, and I just want to encourage anybody that may be going through any type of grief or anything like that. Like Jesus, He had grief. He wept. In Luke 18, I think that was the chapter where Lazarus was he passed. He was sick, and I think in verse 35 it said Jesus wept. Jesus wept because of the emotion he felt from seeing the people that he loved the most have pain and sorrow and cry. And even he did this knowing that he was about to be on the way to raise Lazarus from the dead. Like, just think about that. Like, Jesus knew that he was on the way to raise Lazarus from the dead. But even still knowing that, he still showed empathy. He still showed compassion and cried because those that he loved the most within Mary and Martha, they were in so much pain and just grief and crying that he didn't like to see them hurt. So therefore he cried as well. You know, those were regular human emotions. And even Jesus displayed that. So if Jesus displayed that, you know, we definitely shouldn't hold that back or try to skip that process or try to make somebody feel bad that they're grieving. Like, I would want to know the details of why they're grieving, or do they have any hope or no hope? Just like in I Thessalonians 4:13, grieve like people who have no hope. Grieve like people who aren't believers. Don't grieve like somebody that's an atheist, you know? So that was powerful to me, because how I looked at that verse or those verses a few months ago, before my dad transitioned, is way different now, because now it's clear that grieving is fine. Grieving is okay. You should grieve, but don't grieve like people who are not believers. Don't grieve, especially if you know that person that you're grieving over made a quality decision to accept Jesus. You knew what that person was. You knew what that person stood for in the word. Don't grieve like you don't know where they're at. Grieve because you miss them. You're going to miss all the memories that you had with them and the stuff that you experienced together. And that's fine. Grieve like that, but don't grieve with people that have no hope. People that grieve that have no hope, that turns into anxiety, that turns into depression, that turns into suicide. You know, those are the things that people that grieve with no hope get into eventually, because it's no end. You don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. So that's what I wanted to communicate and really talk to myself about as far as grieving. Grieving is fine. Cry your eyes out. Do what you do the ugly face cry, do all that stuff, you know, but have the proper perspective in knowing that if that person accepted Jesus and made a quality decision to become a believer, that we know where they are, you know. And I'm also a believer that all grief is not equal. Saying that, like, me, I'm 38 years old. Like, my dad passed at this point in my life. I'm married. I have 4 kids. I have a house. I have a nice job. You know, I'm set in life to where he already instilled a lot in me, to where now it's like he passed the baton on, to where I don't think I'm missing as much, other than just that communion, that talk, that father-son relationship, you know. That would be different if I was 28 or 21 or even younger than that, like in, you know, 7, 8, 9, you know. I think those type of deaths or passing are way more hard to take, because you're younger, you don't have certain things set up in life, and you need that person or that parent to guide you through those years, through those moments. And I know I was blessed to have him as long as I did, and he saw me transition from being, you know, not as good and going through certain phases, and me and him not having the greatest relationship when I was, in college, and stuff like that. But I think when I was 20, 24, 25, our relationship kind of took a turn, and I got more into the word. I got more mature. Um, and as I did that, our relationship went to another level. And so I had a good 12, 13 years of our relationship really just blossoming and, becoming more than it ever was, you know. So with grieving, it's okay. Just do it like you have hope, and hoping that the person that you're grieving over um, knew Jesus and was a believer, and that will mentally help and make things go way more smoother moving forward.